In 1995, the New Yorker magazine ran an article by Michael Korda entitled, "Wasn't She Great?" an homage to Jacqueline Suzanne. With such books as Valley of the Dolls and The Love Machine, Suzanne was the most controversial and successful novelist of her generation. After reading Korda's article, writer Paul Rudnick immediately thought the story would make for a compelling movie. The result is the new film, Isn't She Great?
If a man bought me those pearls, not only would I have sex with him, I would enjoy it.
Isn't she great?
Hold on, we're having sex.
Good, take your time.
Joining me now for a conversation about this film and Jackie Suzanne, actor Nathan Lane, who plays Suzanne's husband, Irving Mansfield, and screenwriter Paul Rudnick. I am pleased to have both of them back at this table. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
See you, Paul.
Thank you so much.
Did this happen the way we assume it did? That you read the New Yorker piece and said this would make a good movie?
Yes, and actually the director, Andy Bergman, also had optioned the piece so that, and he's, a wonderful comic talent, so that we just sort of came together and because we were in agreement on the material.
So what was it about this piece? Because Michael Korda was here talking about the piece at the time. What was it about the piece that said movie, movie, movie?
Well, they were such juicy characters. Both Jackie and Irving were so much larger than life, and they were so driven. And it was I think one of the things that I most liked about the Korda piece was how affectionate it was. That he said these people could be monstrous, they could be insane, but they had a kind of demented and very real love affair and marriage based on complete worship of Jackie's career. And I thought that seemed like...
Irving signed on to worship her career.
Yes, very much so. And it's what a perfect husband, your own in-house publicist. Yeah. So that, and also for the time to have a husband who didn't mind that Jackie kept her own name and supported her in everything seemed extraordinary in a way. And they just seemed very comic. They were such showbiz denizens. They were wild.
Did you know her?
No,
never met her.
Never. Just from watching her on TV.
You ever see her?
I remember as a kid her being on the Mike Douglas show and the poochy dresses and the 3-foot hair and that kind of that cigarette voice. So she was very colorful, and I remember thinking, well, I had never seen authors on talk shows.
She was the one who started it.
She really they really sort of, changed the way publishing.
And Korda makes that point in that piece. It said she just changed the way publishing was done. After that, it was a whole new world. Authors knowing how to market their own books.
Yeah. Well, and the way she turned herself into a brand name, and so that it made her somewhat critic-proof because people knew what she looked like. They heard her on Carson, so they would say, "Give me the new Jackie Suzanne. I can't wait." And it didn't matter what the book was, as long as it belonged to the woman in the Poochie.
Yeah. And they actually did, what happens in the movie, they really did go to the Teamsters with coffee and donuts and said, this is our book, and we thank you guys, and personalized. It went from little bookstore to little bookstore from town to town, and knew the names of the people who owned the store and their birthdays, and it sounds crazy, but it actually really paid off for them.
Roll tape. Here's the first clip from this film. We'll take a look at this and come back and talk about Irving Mansfield, who was the husband who did so much for Jackie's career.
I got it. What? You write about me. Oh. No, you write about the beautiful actress and all the handsome young men who desire her.
Science fiction. Ooh.
Now, here's a guy who was living. You could find out a lot about him. Did you go talk to his friends, or just let the script guide you?
Well, it was a wonderful script. So yes, the script did guide me.
Because the screenwriter was good, or
because we had
the screenwriter is here.
and the wittiest screenwriter in all of North America
at this table.
Yeah.
At this table, and at this table.
The wittiest screenwriter at this table.
Yeah.
Good lines.
But there wasn't, there was a book he wrote called My Life with Jackie, and then there was a book by Barbara Seaman, you should pardon the expression, called Lovely Me, which was the more sordid side of their lives. But,
There was a sordid side?
Yeah, I'll say.
The front. The front.
But there wasn't anything, it wasn't like Truman or Gandhi. There was no large tomes about Irving Mansfield, the man and the myth. But I did see, the most telling thing, aside from the books, was an interview he did late in life, after he had written his book about her. And he was much older, and he had a bad facelift, and he didn't look so good, and he was very dull. But the minute he started to talk about her, his eyes lit up, and it was very, very touching. You just saw how much he adored her, and I think that's you know, the key. I mean, I think, yeah, he started off as this kind of Damon Runyon Broadway publicist, and then he met her, and this bond was formed, and they were two people with, you know, the same dream, which is to make it in show business. Yeah.
His skill was just marketing for her. I mean, his drive was he loved her, and his skill was to market things.
It was that, and he was like her own personal cheerleader. I mean,
psychiatrist.
Yeah, sometimes, yes. And you know, it was an unusual thing. I mean, I think she saw, and it wasn't love at first sight. I think she saw in him someone who could provide a certain kind of lifestyle, and he would take care of her. And I think she felt protected by him. But yes, and actually I think it was Billy Rose, who was a friend of theirs, who encouraged her to write a book about their dog. She had written him letters about their dog, Josephine, and then eventually that became the book Every Night Josephine, which was kind of her a pretty big success.
When you choose, I mean, do you sit there with a bunch of things that you can do, and you say, I like this character, or this pays so much money I can't turn away?
I think you're mistaking me for Tom Hanks. Often happens.
It does, doesn't it? It does. Saving Private Ryan you turned down.
Yeah.
But you were so good in Green Mile.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
you were.
Mr. Jingles, always do a movie with a mouse. No, you know, it's not quite like that.
Oh, how is it? Just tell me.
I mean, you know, what you do is the best things that come your way. And, you know, I wish I had the kind of clout to say, well, I think I'll do this next.
How many people have that kind of clout? I mean, is it more than 5?
Yeah, about, you know, a handful of people, Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks and Jim Carrey's, who, you know, can really make those kinds of decisions, and you know, which is great to have that freedom, and so you know, I mean, I have a little bit of that in the theater, you know, where I can say to someone, could we do this play, and they'll, you know, probably say yes, but it doesn't quite happen that way in the movies. But I'd love it to be so, but you know.
Are you going to be on Broadway soon?
Yes. Going back to the theater, or as they call it in Hollywood, unemployed.
He's on Broadway, and Hollywood says he's unemployed.
I'll be doing later in the season The Man Who Came to Dinner for the Roundabout in their new theater, the Selwyn on 42nd Street, and with Christine Baranski, and I will be doing it.
And films?
And Jerry Zaks. Films. Well, I have a movie called Love's Labor's Lost that Kenneth Branagh has directed and is starring in, and he did the catering, he does everything, and which is a musical of Shakespeare's play. And then I have a movie called Trixie with Emily Watson and Nick Nolte, which just
oh, that's right. Emily Watson was just here talking about it when
Sundance.
She came through.
Yeah.
They took it to Sundance.
They took it to Sundance. Yes, it debuted there, and
it's
and
good.
Went very well. It's a wonderful. Alan Rudolph wrote and directed it. Very funny.
And you, sir?
Just all of that. No, I'm just working on a new play, actually, and another screenplay for Paramount. So I'm right in the middle. Whenever one collapses, I go and spend time with the other.
And the column continues? Or?
The column in Premiere continues.
Yeah. Now, are you following the political year?
I am.
You have a candidate?
No, although, well, yes. But what was fascinating me recently was the articles on Steve Forbes over the weekend and his looks. That he was being attacked for his pop eyes and because he was just...
He looked like a nerd or something. And then he said Lincoln had...
Yes, and I thought, this might be a first in American politics where someone's saying, well, I'm as cute as Lincoln. I thought
he is a little scary. He has that
terrifying.
Village of the Damned look in his eyes that really, you know, is troubling.
Well, and also,
you don't want his finger near the red button.
Right.
You know,
certainly don't want any buttons on your outfit. But he's also, you look at this man and you say, you must be so rich, to be appearing on television.
Yeah.
But it's, it's the whole race has already gotten to that level of pettiness. Is kind of endearing. And it'll be sad when Alan Keyes is finally off the podium,
Keyes.
Just because he's so appalling. You know, it's just
it's his political views that you find appalling,
and his pride in them. But it's and the Democrats are sad because they're. I mean, I think Bill Bradley seems terrific, and Al Gore, Lord knows, is also a man of great integrity and all that. And you just think, oh, why can't there be one great guy so we can all just hone in?
Have you any interest in politics, Nate? I mean, do you follow it? Do you? I mean,
You just think I'm a bimbo. You think I'm a total bimbo, Charlie.
Well,
What
I
the
don't.
hell is it with you? What do I have to do?
But just show me what you care about. You weren't interested in the Super Bowl. Football was
Well,
not
as
your
I
game.
told you, Huddle is a character in Fiddler on the Roof to me.
Yes, I know. I know. So I'm now moving to politics. Then novels are next, and then we get to the movies.
Okay.
you are-
Well, gee, this is like a first date.
Yes, it is. We just want to get to know each
I'm
other.
sorry. I
See,
think Nathan is
should
so
we
much
order our
more-
entrees?
Well, no, I think
What?
you are so much more attractive than Coolidge. I think if,
Yes, I do care about politics.
And what's the best you do?
But it's a little disheartening when you look at the choices we have. It's just I don't know.
Between George W. and John McCain?
Yeah. It's
Al
a little,
Gore,
it's a
Bill
little-
Bradley?
Yeah, it's really hard to stay awake.
although what scares me about George W. is he has that slight Reagan Teflon quality where he seems so happy all the time and thrilled to be George W. that makes you somewhat impervious to the facts and
right.
to
That was what
genuine
Nathan had.
offense.
That kind of all shuck stuff.
Yes, and that sense of obliviousness, that there is just a curtain of good cheer at all times, and that can be very effective in politics. I think Americans respond to that because it's the guy, in the leaking lifeboat who says everything's fine, and you want to believe him.
But he had that
seems
look on
so
his
cheery.
face when Barbara and George came out for him the other day, and he was standing there like, "Yeah, my dad could beat up your dad."
Exactly.
It was a little,
And my mom
it's
can beat
sad.
up your whole family. I always felt sort of sorry in a demented fashion for Dad when he lost the presidential election because you could see that the rules had changed and he didn't
Get it.
catch on. He
That's
didn't
right,
get
didn't get it. You're right.
And you thought this was a man who had so behaved himself for his entire career
Right.
and done everything appropriately, and how did it go wrong? And he looked lost, and that's so rare in politicians to actually seem bereft.
Very perceptive.
That it was almost touching, except for the fact that he had done so much evil. But it was but his son has
Evil?
No, why? It's funny. No,
Yeah.
okay. Well, it depends. I don't know. I guess I always feel when you're president, Lord knows it's the most difficult job on the planet, but that you have the potential to do so much good that if you neglect that, that seems like a form of evil to me. But of course, I'm just being a pompous jerk.
No. That's
But you know that it's that thing of
because they all say the reason they're running is because it's an opportunity to do good.
right.
to do things.
And I always think, could you please be a little more specific?
What good is it you want to do?
Well, it's also, it makes politics is so much more cutthroat than show business.
No.
And the
No,
level,
I don't believe that for a second.
In show business, you are paid to be very good at insincerity because that's the skill. But in politics, there's a level of fraudulence that you have to maintain.
You're paid to be sincere.
Yeah, and it's frightening. But it makes me frightened for politicians because I guess Bill Bradley is impressive just because he, on at least several occasions, has seemed to be honest and spontaneous, and that's so rare. It's actually what I always admired about Jesse Ventura, and he's even censoring himself a bit. It's so rare to see someone speak without thinking and consulting their advisors and imagining their future.
You can't imagine, probably, if there was an election this year and Abraham Lincoln and Harry Truman and Franklin Roosevelt, Eisenhower would be the exception, were the candidates because you'd say they all have something that would probably be too much discussed. With Roosevelt, it might be drive and the fact that he was in a wheelchair.
Right,
You couldn't
exactly
keep that
how.
away. With Abraham Lincoln, people always talked about the depression
And the mole.
and the appearance and all that kind of stuff. So, would
Very off-putting.
these people who were giants in our history
Right. Well,
be effective as politicians in this century? In this time.
Well, it was a much smaller country then, and so it's very tricky
And
to
television, they weren't
right
using
exactly.
television.
There wasn't the same media.
And with
scrutiny.
Jefferson, they just finally came out, just recently and announced,
My
yes, the
God.
DNA proves that.
Right.
And CBS, not to be far behind, has got a big made-for-television movie coming up in February
Although
about the
actually-
relationship.
Right. God, well, good Lord. There's already been films about that affair. But it's interesting to think.
Archer
Although,
and Ivory.
if any good came out of the whole Monica Lewinsky affair, it was aside from, of course, her Weight Watchers ads.
And the importance of dry cleaning.
Yeah, exactly. No, or not. And Linda
Or
Tripp
not,
surgery.
yes, that's right. Well, I haven't seen her since she had the surgery. Have you? I mean, even on television.
Well, she hasn't
Or
appeared.
even on television,
although-
never seen her, period.
Interesting, because that's become a real debate, at least in the letters column of People magazine,
Oh.
about do you hate Linda Tripp for her behavior, which seems far more appropriate, and should the looks be secondary? And that Linda Tripp, who, God, she just must have the worst advice in the history of the planet, that she, because originally she kept trying to appeal to the American people as if she were helpless, as if she were only doing the only good she could do. And now she's actually apologized for her looks, which is bizarre behavior and terribly sad in a way, because she thinks, no, Linda, we hate you because you were the worst kind of stool pigeon and bad
You
friend.
were not a good friend.
Exactly.
And
It's-
she was always saying you hated me. She thought in her own mind, her own self-esteem said, you hate me because of the way I look.
It's the hair.
I'm frumpy and therefore
right.
you.
And you think, I believe Eleanor Roosevelt remains fairly beloved, because she was a very deeply good person.
What's your favorite movie this year? Who are you rooting for at the Oscars?
American Beauty, Sam Mendes, and
He's getting it for Best Director, I would think.
I would
I
hope.
think
yeah,
so,
he was-
yeah.
Although I thought Talented Mr. Ripley is a great
It's
movie
great.
and beautifully
Minghella was
directed.
great.
also
Yeah, it really
great,
was.
wonderful movie, and Election I loved. I thought
Yes.
was really
Everybody
wonderful.
talks about that. I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's
Oh,
very
Is
hilarious.
that
funny.
Matthew Broderick, is it? Or-
Yes, and Reese Witherspoon.
it was brilliant. Yeah,
And
no,
All About My Mother, the Almodovar
Yeah,
movie, is
somebody said that's
sensational.
great.
And,
Yeah.
and, there's actually
What
this
else?
has been a very
A
good,
good year?
for movies. Until January.
until now. Until now. That's right. We debuted at what? 16? That's very low on the top 10. But it's
we would've-
definitive proof that homosexuals and women were watching the Super Bowl instead of going to the movies.
But I feel we could have beat the Rams.
You think so?
If we had taken the cast of Isn't She Great to the Super Bowl, we would be on people's shoulders today.
Yeah. But I think this appearance is going to push us over the edge.
You
I think
bet.
so, too.
Maybe number 12?
Because, Charlie, you're going to get the kids out.
Exactly.
The Britney Spears crowd.
Isn't she great? That's right. They all come here, don't they? Isn't she great? Open nationwide on this past Friday, January 28th. Thank you, Nathan. Great to see you.
Great to see you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.